Hey Cinema Central, it's your host, Thomas Price. Well, Happy New Year, or I should say Happy New Year's Eve. I literally cannot believe 2024 ends today. It literally feels like the year just started yesterday, but in less than 24 hours, we'll be in the year 2025. So I want to take time, of course, to say thank you to everyone who's watched my videos this year, the first year of my series, and I'm really, really happy to see how much everyone's enjoyed it. So I thought I'd conclude the year and the month of December on fantasy with a review of another one of the most popular fantasy franchises of all time, of course, the Harry Potter films. So without further ado, let's take a ride on the Hogwarts Express. So for those of you who don't know, the Harry Potter film series is actually based upon author J.K. Rowling's seven-book Harry Potter series of the same name, which were published between 1997 to 2007. There are seven books, all of which are absolutely just amazing, well written, terrific character development, great world building, just everything about it is amazing. So it really is no surprise, of course, that Warner Brothers Pictures snatched up the rights and turned it into a film franchise. Now, amazingly, the film series actually has eight films. This was because Warner Brothers decided to split the final story, Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, into two parts. So all eight films were released over a 10-year period, beginning in 2001 and ending in 2011. Like many millennials, I was very lucky enough to see all eight films in theaters, and to me, they were and will always be just nothing more than magical experiences, just absolutely amazing. So for those of you who are watching who are familiar with Harry Potter, just FYI, it took me a long, long time to actually want to read the books, which I read the whole series just 10 years ago, from book to book in probably maybe a month or two. I loved it that much. Um, anyway, I'll talk about the films now. So instead of providing a review of all eight films, I thought I'd talk about what really makes the Harry Potter films special. And there are three things I think they would include: the world, the characters, and of course, the magical creatures. Before I go into the world, I'll give you an overview of the franchise. So the Harry Potter film series centers on its titular character, Harry James Potter. He is an orphan who has been raised by his neglectful and cruel relatives, the Dursleys, his Uncle Vernon, Aunt Petunia, and cousin Dudley, for all of his life. When Harry turns 11, though, he learns that he is actually a wizard. And he also learns that his unusual lightning-shaped scar was a souvenir from the time in which the most evil dark wizard of all time, Lord Voldemort, not only killed his parents, but tried to kill Harry himself. Harry then begins attending Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, an amazing school located in a castle hidden far from the prying eyes of muggles, that is to say, the non-magical folk. Over the course of about 6+ years, Harry learns a lot about not only how to do magic, but how to control it and what it actually means. He is sorted into the Gryffindor house, which is one of the Hogwarts School four houses, which includes Gryffindor, Slytherin, Hufflepuff, and Ravenclaw. Harry becomes best friends with his fellow Gryffindors, Ron Weasley and Hermione Granger. They go on a bunch of crazy and dangerous adventures over the years. And ultimately, some of these adventures do happen when Lord Voldemort, spoiler alert, does indeed return from the dead. It all culminates in an epic battle between the forces of good and the forces of evil in Book 7. I don't want to say too much more than that for those of you who haven't read. So the first thing I'd like to talk about, of course, is the world. J.K. Rowling herself not only she really created an absolutely incredible world called the Wizarding World. So the Wizarding World itself is a place that is so different from the Muggle world in that magic is allowed and encouraged and celebrated. And crazy enough, in the magic world, things like electricity, cars, and other modern things just aren't really utilized as much. Wizards are very much old-fashioned, kind of relying more upon things from maybe the 1800s, 1700s, and even beyond. But they're very content Also in the magical world, you have you have magical creatures, which I'll talk about later, and of course you have places that just Muggles can't access. Of course, the heart of the magical world in the films is Hogwarts School, which is an incredibly huge castle that, according to Rowling, was founded over 1,000 years ago by four of the greatest wizards and witches of all time: Godric Gryffindor, Salazar Slytherin, Helga Hufflepuff, and Rowena Ravenclaw, all of whom wanted to instruct students in the ways of magic. However, according to Rowling, Salazar Slytherin himself distanced himself from the other three founders because he thought that teaching magic should only be restricted to wizards or witches born into pure magic families, so those who are all magical, and completely exclude half-bloods, i.e., those witches or wizards who are sometimes born into non-magical or only half-magical families. So, again, the use of the world is amazing. And of course, well, the world of film really allows Hogwarts to come alive. I mean, amazingly, a lot of the shots of the castle were actually models, both physical and digital, and of course, the crew also filmed on real castles in and around the United Kingdom, including in Scotland, which really makes it all the more exciting and, no pun intended, magical. And of course, when you watch the films and see Hogwarts School, I mean, it's literally a place you'd want to visit. I mean, you've got the Great Hall where you have meals, and it's lit by thousands of floating candles. And of course, you have all the house dormitories, like you've got the Gryffindor Tower, which is cozy, elegant, and just all around warm and inviting. And of course, you've got your classrooms for topics like defense against the dark arts, charms, and potions, all of which are scattered throughout the castle. And of course, you have the hut belonging to the groundskeeper, Rubeus Hagrid, a half-giant, which sits right at the edge of the Forbidden Forest, which is really explored a lot in Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, which, as its name suggests, is not only forbidden but dark, ominous, and full of strange and sometimes frightening creatures. Another really interesting aspect of the Muggle world, of course, is the Ministry of Magic, which is literally hidden under the streets of modern London. And of course, then the wizard shopping community of Diagon Alley, which is also hidden in the middle of modern London. Diagon Alley, of course, is an amazing place full of shops where you can buy wands, potion ingredients, and pets such as owls, toads, cats, and other creatures. You also have the amazing Gringotts Wizarding Bank, which is run by goblins, and yeah, I mean, you've got some really amazing worlds here that were really carefully constructed through the use of film. Next thing that makes the series so amazing, of course, are its characters. I mean, you can't have a good story without without really good characters. So for this video, to keep it a little shorter on time, I'm mainly going to talk about the Golden Trio, i.e. Harry Potter, Ron Weasley, and Hermione Granger, known as the Golden Trio. So Harry Potter, as the series' titular protagonist, as I mentioned, is an orphan who has been raised by his Muggle relatives, the Dursleys, for all of his life. But we find out that he was the son of James Potter and Lily Potter, both of whom were sadly killed by Lord Voldemort when Harry was around a year old. Amazingly, Harry does gain a lot of magical power and experiences over his years, but we also see that he can be a bit of a rule flouter, and also, and a bit headstrong and stubborn, but we also see that he is very humble and also very much caring towards his friends. Harry does suffer a good number of losses, though, throughout the series. I don't want to share too much about that for those who haven't seen the movies, but he does emerge victorious at the end of the series. And just it's good to see him finally get sort of the ending that he had been hoping for. He's also called the Chosen One because of an ancient prophecy, but not much I want to talk about there. And then, of course, well, let's talk about his two friends, starting with Ron Weasley. Now, Ron is the youngest son in a large family of nine. That includes his parents, Arthur and Molly Weasley, and then his four older brothers. Um, Actually, I take it back, five older brothers. Again, there's a lot of Weasleys. That includes his brothers, Bill, Charlie, Percy, and then his twin brothers, Fred and George, and then his little sister, Ginny. Amazingly, throughout the series, we do see that Ron himself is actually very insecure and actually does at times get jealous of Harry because of the attention and recognition that Harry receives. At times, Ron can be a not exactly likable character, but deep down, he has a good heart and does remain Harry's loyal friend to the end. And he does actually grow more confident and brave towards the end of the series, and is a huge part in helping bring about Lord Voldemort's downfall at the end. In the film version, we see that Ron is a little bit more of the comic relief, but I mean, it makes him all the more entertaining, and we still see him grow. And then, of course, we have Hermione Granger, played by the brilliant Emma Watson. Hermione is literally, as many characters say, the smartest in it's probably the smartest Gryffindor of Harry and Ron's entire year. She actually, like Harry, comes from a Muggle family, but she comes from a very loving Muggle family at that. She's a very brilliant, completely book smart, a rule follower, and also probably one of the most gifted witches in the year. When we first meet her in the Sorcerer's Stone, she's a bit bossy. I'm not going to lie, um, and uh, and Harry and Ron don't exactly like her at first, but she does become their best friend after they help save her from a dangerous mountain troll, which is a really fun and well executed scene. And Hermione does develop a lot towards the end of the film. We actually find out that she herself is also a little bit insecure about her looks, and also she does, later on catch the attention of someone, and then later ends up falling in love with Ron. A little bit of a spoiler there. So yeah, I mean, Hermione is a really fun character. She has some great lines like you're mispronouncing it. It's Leviosa, not Leviosar. I mean, it's such a fun and funny moment at that. So again, the main three characters are the most entertaining, and you still see a lot of merch for them with the movies. And of course, they were brought to life by the talents of Daniel Radcliffe, Rupert Grint, and Emma Watson. And so then the next thing I'd like to talk about are the creatures, because I myself am a huge magical creatures fan, and it's amazing to see how J.K. Rowling was able to incorporate many famous mythical and magical creatures into the wizarding world. So of course you have dragons. And in the films, we actually see some amazing types of dragons. We see what J.K. Rowling calls a Norwegian Ridgeback named Norbert, who is briefly taken care of by Hagrid. In the Goblet of Fire, Harry faces off a very particularly dangerous dragon species called a Hungarian Horntail. While in the Deathly Hallows Part 2, Harry, Ron, and Hermione escape from Gringotts Bank on the back of a Ukrainian Iron Belly dragon. And of course, I mean, and computer-generated effects and large props just really bring these dragons to life. So of course, I'm a big fan of dragons myself. Other magical creatures seen in the films include centaurs, which, like them, the ancient Greek and Roman myths that they come from, are presented as wild, unruly, and hateful towards humans. Although we do have a couple good centaurs in there who end up actually being a big help to the main characters. You also have werewolves, you have giants, you have water demons called Grindylows, and also they talk about kappas. And then what else do they? Again, there's a lot of mythical creatures that talk about it, and the creatures really make the world just absolutely incredible. So again, I think it's great to see that Rowling herself was able to incorporate both familiar and new magical creatures. Oh, and of course, one of my other personal favorite mythical creatures, the Basilisk, which is the main antagonist of Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. And you can definitely tell Rowling does her research in the film when talking about the Basilisk and how its method of killing is gazing at people with its large eyes. and that it can be poisonous, and according to some stories, is hatched by a toad that sits on a chicken's egg. So again, the basilisk is another great creature. So those are the main things. And of course, the other thing that really makes the Harry Potter series so fun is its theme of good versus evil. I mean, that's basically a hallmark of any good fantasy story. Harry himself represents the side of good, while Voldemort is the side of evil. But I think what also makes its exploration of good versus evil so unique is how, instead of just having a random bad villain, what we learn through the words of Hogwarts headmaster Albus Dumbledore is that evil isn't always necessarily born, but sometimes it's made. It's really an interesting topic, because when you think about it, I mean, Harry himself could sometimes easily turn evil, largely due to the mistreatment he had at the hands of his relatives, the Dursleys, and having lost his parents. But Harry, instead of letting his anger fully control him, actually learns to let himself feel the human emotions, and also choose what he knows to be right, which is good. We definitely see the battles of good versus evil throughout the series, but it really comes full steam in films 5 through 8. And around those films, the storyline gets very dark and sometimes a little scary too. But it's so well done, and we definitely see the characters are put through a lot of trials and tribulations, basically being changed, no pun intended, from wicked for good. Again, it's the theme of good versus evil is definitely fits in the world of Harry Potter. And then the last thing I'd like to add actually is, in many ways, the Harry Potter films are actually a good example of coming of age. And we actually see that in the books as well, because when Harry and his friends start Hogwarts, they're all 11 years old. And towards the end of the film, they're all about 17 to 18. And we see them struggle with growing into their teen years, struggling with things such as identity, first love, clashing with adults. I mean, we really see them the main three just grow and mature incredibly towards the end of the film. And in many ways, one could say that that the characters are robbed of their chance to enjoy growing up due to the threat of Voldemort. And yet, throughout the film series and the books, we really see them take time to nurture those sides of them. So again, that concludes my review of the Harry Potter film franchise, and also concludes my fantasy film series in honor of the Bowers exhibit, Fantasy Realms of Imagination, and also concludes this is my last video of 2024. So again, thank you so much to everyone who's been following me since I first started making videos in June. Tune in next month. I'll be starting a whole series of animated films in honor of the upcoming Annie Awards. So again, this is your host, Thomas Price. It's been a real pleasure, and then happy New Year, and thank you again for a wonderful 2024.